Cool. DoorGrow show. So Jason Hall here. I'm with Badass Kass. And I got to show off this t-shirt that I made several years ago. I don't know if you can see it, but
I love it. I love
a
it.
lightning unicorn. I found some stencils, cut them out, and painted the thing. And my 3-year-old loved it. So
you can paint it and then wash it, and it stays.
I got t-shirt paint. You just go on Amazon and you buy like black t-shirt paint. Yeah.
So I think it's hilarious that you have a unicorn with thunderbolts, because I was almost late to this blab because I was getting in an argument about Trump on Facebook with somebody, and she said
not worth it.
Totally not worth it. Totally not worth it. However, she did say there was nothing wrong with bombing people and getting rid of people and all that jazz. And then she posted rainbows and unicorns. And I said, that's
rainbows and unicorns.
I said, that's interesting. I've never seen bombs and rainbows together before. Well, not this unicorn. And so it's kind of fitting that you're wearing a happy unicorn.
Yeah. I think it's happy. It could be angry. Who knows? There's lightning bolts.
Fierce.
So yeah, so cool. So Kass, so today, you know what? I don't even have that mind map up, but I'm going to pull that up here.
Okay. And I don't have it up, so I'm gonna let you lead the show, and I'll answer as many as I can.
So if you don't know Badass Kass, she was recently published in the most recent magazine that came out from NARPM. So if you're familiar with NARPM, the National Association of Residential Property Managers, this organization, Kass was in this, and which is really cool.
Kass,
and she's been around the NARPM. Yes, Badass Kass. So Kass built a property management business from the ground up.
From the ground up.
From the ground up.
One house at a time.
And the majority of the doors that you got in and building these doors came through this method that we're going to talk about today. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I would say 80% of the doors were built.
80%. And how many doors under management do you have in the business?
We are just under 300. We're at a point now where we get rid of the bad seeds. So we're healthy enough where we're like, hey, does it make sense to get rid of this guy? And so we'll fire some. So we kind of go up and down right at that 300 mark.
So people can check out my Cycle of Suck video. Just Google Cycle of Suck and property management, and Kass knows what I'm talking about here. She's filtering out the bad crap. So, awesome. And how long did it take you to get to 300 doors?
3 years.
3 years. So ground up. 3 years, that's roughly about 100 doors a year.
Right.
And I've talked to business owners, several recently, because I've created this thing targeting 0 to 100 doors people. But I've talked to several that have been in business longer than 3 years, and they haven't even broken the 100-door barrier.
Oh, well, maybe I can teach them how.
Yeah, this would be this. There's several tactics, and this one is particularly genius and relevant to them. And we're going to touch on it. We're not going to go into incredible detail here, probably, but I want to point out this idea, just to plant this seed for people. And for those that have signed on for my seed package, I'm planning to do something for them where we go into greater detail for this. And I think you and I, what we'll do is probably do a webinar where we'll get into the nitty gritty and let people ask questions, which I think will be really relevant. So, all right. So one of the challenges in property management is everybody focuses on trying to market. And especially when you're starting out, usually in the 0 to like 200 door range, starting out, marketing is not like, it's a luxury that they can't afford. And it doesn't usually make sense. So most people, when they come to me, usually buy like, in the 200 to 400 door range, then they're all of a sudden, hey, now we're ready to do some marketing in our business. And they've grown their business entirely through word of mouth. Hustling, and it's taken them a long time. I talked to a guy who had 220 doors, and it took him 20 years to get there.
Ouch. I don't have that type of time.
Right. So
I don't have that type of time.
So in building the business, what's the things that I think are really critical and really key are reputation is a huge factor that people overlook, because reputation sites like Yelp, you know, Google, stuff like that, that can alone feed more business than you would get through spending thousands on pay-per-click and SEO and everything else, for example. That's one channel. Now, another channel is prospecting. And prospecting is great because prospecting is collapsing the sales cycle, especially if you do it in a way where you're positioned as an authority or an expert, then you don't have to sell. Because another challenge I find with property managers is most of them aren't really good at selling. And usually if you're in a position of authority, sales becomes a lot more natural, a lot more easy, because they're coming to you for advice and information. And this tactic of targeting, what we're going to be talking about, targeting the foreclosure or auction market, is a tactic to position yourself as an authority so that you had explained to me you have had literally spent about 3 hours a month and had a line of people that were investors and people just lining up to get your advice. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So this
I
is
have a room full of investors.
a room full of investors,
You know,
and this is one of the number one questions when I say you need to start by prospecting first. They say, well, where are they? Where are the investors? And so the only thing they can think of is, okay, I'm going to go to realtors that have investors and annoy the hell out of them. And I'm going to try and pitch to their offices and do this sort of thing, which there are some cool tactics you can do there, but there aren't investors there. Mm-hmm. Those people know where investors might be. They have investors, but the investors aren't there.
Or it's somebody who you have to filter through in order to get to the investor, right?
Right.
I want the end user.
Yeah, you want that direct access to the investor. So, all right. So let's get into this. I'm still pulling up the mind map here. Let's see here. I think I called it auction something. Or what did we call it? Foreclosures? I don't remember. All right.
I lube up my lips so I can talk.
All right, cool. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to search for a keyword here. Auction.
I might be able to find it. You emailed it to me as well.
Yeah, I don't see it in here though for some reason. I sent you the link. I think I did. All right. So we'll dig this up here eventually, but let's just get into it. So there's a couple different people. So
I got it. Here you go, babe. It's
okay.
Away.
Cool. What'd you do? Email it to me?
Yep. It's coming in over email. Your link, MindMeister.
Awesome. All right.
Wanna be a miser?
All right. Cool. I'm gonna pull this up here. All right. So the basic idea. So tell us the basic idea and tell us how you started doing this.
Well, sure. I'll give you a little background about who I am and what I was doing prior to real estate and why it just became a natural fit for me to move into foreclosures. So I think I was 18 years old when I took my first job at a car dealership, of all things. I was living up in northern Washington, and there was an ad running that said, no experience necessary, females encouraged to apply. And I was like, I fit both those things. Yes. Great. So I ended up selling cars at the age of 18. And it quickly showed me that you could show up every day, pay attention, use some systems, and get paid commission. That was my first, commission. And actually 20 years later, I'm older than 38, but 20 some odd years later, I've still only been 100% commission. So I've never had a paying job or security, right? So it was all based on my hustle. So I ended up being in the auto industry for about 12 years. By the time I was 21, I was a finance manager. I was managing over grown men. And I learned from some of the best and I watched some of the worst. But what I did learn is that if you did a certain system, wash, rinse, repeat, you would get paid. And then my job was, I needed you to like me, buy from me, and rave about me in less than a half an hour. That's about how much time I had with each client as a finance manager. And I don't know the last time you bought a car, but I was the one who sold you all the aftermarket products. Yeah. And so that paid my bills, and I was making $100,000 a year by the time I was 23 years old. However, I ended up getting sucked into that industry. And what I realized is nobody was really going to help me own a car dealership, right? This was a good old boys club. If you weren't the wife of or the daughter of, you were just supposed to sit there and look pretty and make other people rich. And that didn't work for me anymore. So right about when I turned 30, I decided to leave the auto industry, and I really didn't know what to do with myself. Here, I've been making a six-figure income, and I had no college education, a year of college education, and I got babies and mouths to feed, and I didn't know what to do. I loved branding and marketing, but all of those jobs, all the .coms and everything that was going on, they wanted you to have a 4-year degree, and they wanted to start you out at $40,000 a year, and that didn't work for me. It didn't pencil.
Right.
So I decided, well, if I could sell cars, then I could sell houses. So I went out and got my real estate license. Now, here's what I didn't like about real estate, and I still don't. Traditional real estate didn't really satisfy me because I saw, first of all, it was a very egocentric industry, right? Your face on a business card, your face on the park bench. It was all about ego.
And it's all about the photo. You always say to the agents, it's all about the photo. You just got to get the right photo.
So weird. Because in the
it's like Hollywood. Like everybody there is like, it's all about the headshot.
Yeah. And in the car industry, we made a lot of money, and we touched a lot of lives, and we turned a lot of inventory, and none of us put our face on our business card. So this was a really weird transition for me. I also found that it was very female dominated, and I was used to the guys. I was used to the boys who rock and roll, high five, and we close deals. And here all of a sudden, I have to hang out with women who want to nurture these egos and nurture these relationships, and that was a hard learning process for me. And what I needed is I needed deals. I needed inventory. I needed deals. I needed people to get in front of, because I had proven that I can sell. And right. I couldn't survive off one deal every 3 months for a big commission. That would bore me. So I ended up hanging my real estate license with one of the largest property management companies in the Northwest, in the Seattle area. And it took me about 30, 60 days for me to realize that everybody at that brokerage, at that property management company, was pretty miserable, right? We got babies.
Yes.
Hi, babies. And so what I realized is a lot of people in property management they're overworked, they're underpaid, they feel, this burden that they have to do this cat and mouse game every single day. And I ended up leasing up a property for a foreclosure investor. And I'm going to tell you, Jason, this is probably the coolest story about how it all happened. So, I'm in not the best neighborhood in Seattle, and I've got some international students that have moved into town, and they need a house, and they show up in their fancy cars and their Acuras and BMWs, and everybody pulls up, and I walk the house with them, and they all agree that they like it. We decided that the rent rate was, $2,000 a month, and I looked over at them and I said, all right, well, I need everybody to fill out an application. Now, this is back in the day. This is 9 years ago.
Right.
9 years
Everything
ago.
was paper.
Yeah, I had a paper application. So what I did is I pulled out applications, and literally we signed them on the hood of the car.
Yeah.
And then I looked at them and I said, okay, now I need your down payment. I have to take this off the market. And in the auto industry, we called that getting the glue. Got to get the glue, man. because nobody comes back. If you let them go, they're not coming back. And we used to refer to that in the car business as the be back bus. There is no be back bus. Everybody's not going to be on a bus.
Right, because they say we'll be back. That's what the buyer tells you.
I gotta go get something to eat. I gotta go.
Yeah, we need to do this. We'll do that, and then they second guess everything, and they don't
come back. So
there's no be back bus.
There's no be back bus.
I love it.
So I looked at these international students, and I said, so I need you to write a check for $2,000 to get the glue and take it off the market. And they said, we don't have any checks, right? And a lot of international students have really healthy bank accounts linked to their really healthy parents in other countries. And I know this because I used to sell cars to these students as well.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's go to the bank. And I jumped in the back of their Acura, and we took off, and we went to Bank of America, and everyone pulled all their cash out. And then they took me back to the house and dropped me off. Well, the owner of that property was a foreclosure investor, and he happened to be there at the property doing work that day. He had a ball cap on. He was out front raking the leaves. He looked like he was hired help. I knew
he was undercover.
He was undercover. Now, in the auto industry, I know how to play house. It's called playing house, right? Yeah. So I let everyone think he was the lawn boy, but I really knew he was my client.
Oh, you knew. Okay.
And so by the time these guys dropped me off, I've got 5 applications, $2,000 in cash. And I walked over, counted it right to him and said, boom, I'll have this wrapped up tomorrow. And he said, I have never seen anybody close a real estate transaction like that before. And I said, I don't know why you wouldn't close it like that. What else am I supposed to do?
He was like this. It's like WTF, man. That never happens.
Right. So he immediately said, you know what, I want to introduce you to a group of guys that I know who are at who do this foreclosures for an industry. And I think you need to meet these guys. And that's how I got in. So I interviewed with the foreclosure company, and they said, listen, based on your skill set, why don't you start a leasing division for us? And basically, we're going to have all these mom and pops coming to the auction, and the ones who want to buy and hold. And back then, this is 9 years ago. We also had lease options, which I'm not totally a fan of unless it's structured right. But they said, basically, Kassandra, we want to give you a department, build it from the ground out, figure it out. We'll support you. But basically, we need our mom and pops who want to be landlords to have some type of resources. And that's how I got in.
You hadn't been a property manager.
I know.
You hadn't done, and so you were not.
I had done 5 deals.
And here's the advantage in that. And I did the same thing in web design. So the advantage in that is you came into the industry without any preconceived notions, ideas. You weren't like towing the NARPM line that everybody had fed you. Like you weren't doing what everybody else is doing, which 90% of them are just failing. And so you just said, what's going to work?
Right.
What's going to work? Right?
Yeah.
Love it.
So that was
and this was a foreclosure business.
Yeah. So now I've been introduced to this foreclosure company. It just so happened it was the #1 foreclosure company in town. Now, keep in mind, foreclosures back then were we didn't talk about it. Do you remember back in the day when people didn't share the fact that they had a bankruptcy? It was very hush hush and embarrassing and shame, and you lived in this little secret world where you didn't want to tell anyone. And then we went through when the .com
it was like in terms of evil, it was like I killed somebody.
Yes.
Or I got a bankruptcy.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So that all started. When people started talking openly about their bankruptcies, was right around the time that the .coms busted. Right. So
that was probably what, 2000 and
early 2000s.
Well, the market went totally south. 2006, 2007. It was like it got really ugly. So after that, everybody was like, we're all screwed.
That was the housing. So when the housing,
that was the
housing. So, but bankruptcies happened with the .coms. So what these guys were doing is they were going to the foreclosure auctions, and there wasn't a lot of competition. There was no HDTV flip this house shows out yet. this was a silent guy's, playground. And this is where the good old boys hung out. Well, guess what? I happen to come from the good old boy car dealership, and now I'm hanging out with the good old boy investors. Same type of guys. And, sometimes I look back and go, why the hell did I surround myself with these types of people for the last 20 years? But that would lead into why I went into yoga and meditation and a lot of healing later. But
it was a catalyst for growth.
It was.
It was the sand that helped you create the pearl.
Right. Or they say, we have to get beat up in adversity to come out and be even more beautiful on top. So, so what I did is I ended up building a leasing division for these guys, and I was with this foreclosure company through the good days, the bad days, when the housing market crashed. And here's the beautiful thing about property management. It does not matter if it's a hot market or a tanking market. You will always have renters. Do you know we have over
there's always renters.
There's 100 million renters
right
now in the marketplace, 100 million renters, and they're growing. They all need somewhere to go. And so you're always going to have a rental market. And that's what I really loved, is that when all these real estate agents were peeling their faces off the park benches and off the buses, right? Because they couldn't afford the advertising anymore and they were getting out of the business. I was fine. I was in property management. I was helping. Well, actually, I'll tell you another secret that I did on my marketing to get renters to rent from me. But I wasn't scared of foreclosures, and I could talk that language. So let's talk about it real quick. When the foreclosure boom happened and half of America went underwater, I just changed all my advertising. I said, do you have less than perfect credit? Are you bumped and bruised and broken? Call me, because I might be able to help you rebuild yourself and put you back into a house. And so while all the other property management companies in town were saying, we can't accept you because of your credit, I was actually taking those people and looking at the whole picture. Now, I was a finance manager, so I'd been looking at the whole picture of credit for 12 years prior because of the auto industry. I needed to know, based on your credit, does it look like you're going to pay? Now, we all have crap. We've all been through the muck and the bad days. I've done it. I've had short sales. Does that define who I am? Does that mean that I can't afford a house? You know what I mean? Like it's looking at it in a different way. I think my background of hustling in the auto industry, my background of being able to pull credit, read people's body language, understand people's stories, and then still put a deal together and close that deal ultimately for my landlords so that they are protected, cash flowing, and they can sleep at night, that they're not going to get taken advantage of. That became the most beautiful marriage and something I got really, really good at.
Yeah. And it felt rewarding because you felt like you were doing something, you were contributing in the marketplace. Yeah. All right. So let's get into this auctions idea. So, and here's why, like, these are the things we had discussed. Why target auctions and why target foreclosures? Okay. So one, I mean, you can find clients there, right? Pretty obvious. Not only that, but you can also find referral partners that will send you clients. Right. You can speak an investing language to them. Yep. Which is a better language to be speaking. Yep. And, because they're a different crowd. And then you become a trusted authority or advisor to them, as I'd mentioned. You catch them earlier in the sales cycle before they get the investment property and start looking for a property manager. So they already have a property manager in mind, which is you. Yep. Okay, so let me tell you what the foreclosure auctions look like in the Seattle area. So in the Seattle area, every Friday morning, is today Friday? Right now. Yeah, today, right now. Right now, all the mom and pops, all the investors, bunch of people who are buying foreclosures are down at the King County court right now, outdoors in a public location, bidding on properties. Okay.
So the first thing you can do, if you don't know where the foreclosure meetings are, just find out where the public auction is taking place. That's it.
And how would they find that?
How would they find that, Jason? I never had to look for it. It's public knowledge.
Okay.
I'll make sure I have that answer for you on the webinar.
Yeah, I mean, who would know? Who knows this stuff? Who knows where the auctions are? I've never tried looking.
I've never. I've always had it spent.
Seattle auctions.
Yeah.
Seattle,
King County. I would say. Well, you know what? I'll get that answer for you when we do the webinar.
Okay, cool.
I just kind of walked into it and know where it is because of default.
Yeah.
So it's public knowledge. Everybody's down there, and then what happens is you're just going to see this whole group of people. And now keep in mind, it can be totally intimidating, right? Because this is a cutthroat industry. Like these guys are coming down with cash, and they're trying to bid each other out of a property, and it's a different type of ego. It's not the same.
They're sharks,
oh
right?
Yeah, it's aggressive.
But anyone can go, right?
Anybody can go. Open to the public. I mean, they'll have picketers and people. I mean, you'll see people crying on the footsteps of the courthouse because they're losing their home. Anybody can come.
Yeah.
Right? I remember when we used to have really successful days and, hundreds. How sad is it when 200 houses get auctioned in one day? And I remember looking around I looked around at the foreclosure guys and I said, hey, you guys, what about all those families? What's going to happen to all those families of those 200 homes? And the type of attitude you'll see is things like, it doesn't really matter, Kass. Look at this deal. Oh, check out this, right?
We're winning.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where I had a little bit of a great divide with this. But I played the game and I showed up anyway. And what's going to happen is when the house goes up for auction, somebody's going to get it. Somebody's going to buy it privately, or it's going to revert back to the bank and become what's called an REO, a real estate investment, right? And so,
and the people that buy it, the people that they're buying these, the investors, the majority of them are trying to turn this into a flip, right?
I would say most people are doing flips because they're trying to build up their cash reserves, right? So I think it was Gary Keller from Keller Williams in one of his books that said, people who buy and sell get rich. People who buy and hold get wealthy, right? So I think what you're going to find is, let's say you've got a guy who's got about $80,000 to play with. He's going to use hard money lending, other people's money. He's going to invest in a property. He's going to use his $80,000 to fix up that property. He's going to put it on the market, hope that he can sell it for X amount of profit, get all his money back out. Now he's got $100,000 to work with, right? So maybe he made $20,000. A $20,000 flip would be really good in today's market, by the way. And it doesn't always happen, but I've seen guys make, $150,000, $200,000 on a flip because they were on a property nobody else was, or they knew something, or they knew how to fix it up. So let's say you make anywhere from $5,000 to, $30,000 on a flip. Okay, that would be a good healthy. Well, what they're doing is they're building their reserves. Now they've got more money. So I think a lot of investors do flips in order to build their cash reserves. The ones that are maybe a little more established, they've got more buying power, they're going to buy and hold. They're going to buy and hold because they're banking on appreciation. They're going to buy and hold because they're banking on cash flow, right? And so I just started hanging out where these people hung out. Now, in order for people to get the right information at these foreclosure auctions, they have to scrub titles. They have to make sure there's not a second on the property, right? There's a lot of things that go, if it has an HOA, what if it has a rental cap? What if it has a special assessment? So let's say you have 200 properties going and only 40 of them make sense. And you're only going to have the opportunity to bid on 10 of them, and you're just hoping you get one, okay? In order for you to do due diligence on 200 properties, most likely you're going to want to team up with foreclosure specialists, a foreclosure company, somebody who has turned this part of it into a business. And that's where I went to work. I went to go work with a bunch of guys that did all the scrubbing of the titles, did all the due diligence so that mom and pops could make good buying decisions, right? And without them having to actually do the research themselves. Now, that means they're going to have to pay a commission. They're going to have to pay a standard 3% commission. And that's how it works up here anyway. So now, where do these people hang out? Well, they hang out at the Thursday night meeting before the Friday morning auction. So every Thursday night in Seattle, in and around King County and Pierce County and Snohomish and in Washington, there are investor groups getting together, and we're talking about the properties. We're like, the Smith property is going up in Redmond for $400,000. We think if you fix it up, you could get $600,000. The Johnson property is going in Tacoma, right? And so what we do is we put them up on a big screen and we talk it out, and people ask questions. And what do you think the fix up is? And did the roof look good? And what about the neighbor? And so now you've got this little community group of investors and mom and pops asking questions. And that's where I hang out. That's where I got all my business. I planted my butt in a seat every Thursday night for the last 9 years. And I hung out with anywhere from 40 to 50 mom and pops. And I answered all their rental questions. And I got so good at it by the end, I still am. I became kind of what they call a rental rain man. So when they put a property up, I shout out $24.95, $18.95, $15.95.
And what are you shouting out? The rent?
Rent rates based on
Nice.
based on location, square footage, and their fix up. Assuming that they're going to fix it up the way that they're telling them to do it, they should get a fair market value of X. And if you do that, you should also get a rent range of approximately X, right? And so that's what I do is I sit in those, and then all of a sudden people start. So a lot of the flippers started going, oh, I never even thought about being a landlord. Wait, this gal knows the rent rates, and she knows the laws, and she can do the paperwork, and she can market for the clients. Oh, maybe I will buy that property as a flip, and I'll go ahead and buy that one as a hold, right? And that's the beauty. Now all of a sudden,
and here's the opportunity, right? So there's lots of people going there hoping to get a property at a low enough dollar amount at auction so that they can turn around and flip it,
exactly.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they need margin. The problem is the house flipping market is so saturated now. Like everybody is talking about flipping. So the properties are getting bid to the point where there's no margin anymore.
Yep.
But if you can turn it into a rental,
you can bid higher.
You can bid higher and still make money.
Yeah, because you're banking on appreciation. You're going to hold it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Right. So you can outbid the flippers. Mm-hmm. They're going to look at you like, who is this guy?
And they're not going to like you, but that's okay.
Yeah, they're going to hate you. And you're putting the flippers out of a property, but you're turning this into a great investment for long-term as a rental property.
Exactly.
And they need a property manager because there's no way in hell they want to manage a rental.
No, because they work at Boeing and Microsoft and right, they've got day jobs, and they were dabbling in this real estate investment thing, hoping to get some experience and some money, but they don't want to be a landlord. Right. So you go in with the value add and say, I got you. I'm going to take care of this side of it for you. I'm going to complement what you're doing. And
a lot of property managers will do the remake and remodel or handle that stuff too for them. A lot of property managers I talk to are like, yeah, we do remakes, remodels, rent ready, all this stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So the property manager can take all of that off their and then they feel like they going into this property and buying it, they have this safety net, which is you, the property manager, that's going to get the property ready, make sure it's rentable, and know what it could be rented.
The foreclosure companies, the good ones, right? Because we can talk about that when we do the webinar, the good, the bad, and the ugly guys. Make sure you put that in there because there are all those things. The good, the bad, and ugly. Yeah. Good, bad, and the nasty.
You're talking about the reps? Or the hard money lenders? Or the agents? Or
who you're doing business with. Be careful of who you're associating your name with, right?
Yeah.
You associate with the wrong guys who don't have your back, they can tarnish your image just as easily, right? So
Right.
we want to do this for good opportunity, but we don't want to get in. I think I worked at a car dealership once, and I had left a car dealership in California, moved to Washington. I called my old boss and I said, I don't feel right about this company. They're treating people really poorly. It makes me feel icky, right? This industry is already icky. It makes me feel worse. And he said, Kassandra, you lay with the dogs, you're going to get fleas. And I will never forget that, because you got to be careful of who you get in bed with. You got to be careful who you're doing business with, because it can suck the life out of you, right? They'll use you up and tear you up and use all your resources and never do any co-marketing with you, and could care less if you actually succeed. So when we do the webinar, we'll get into how to really position yourself so that you don't get taken advantage of. But there are good guys out there, guys and gals, right? There are good companies out there that you can be associated with. So let's talk about this. So now every single Thursday, I sit in a room for about 3 hours, which is my marketing investment. So remember the 300 houses that I did in under 3 years? Oh, by the way, that's just under management. What I didn't tell you is in that 9 years, I've closed over 3,000 single family homes as lease ups. It wasn't until 3 years ago that I went, oh, residual income, I should start my own company. Could you imagine if I did that 9 years ago? I leased up 3,000 homes. My list should be so big. I just was burning the candle at both ends trying to make a name for myself that I didn't stop and slow down long enough to actually build a.
So let's play this what if game. So if you knew this idea of dealing with auctions, foreclosures, and had started doing this as your own business, how many doors do you think you'd have now?
Oh, I'd have way over 1,000. I'd have over 1,500. I'd have more. But here's the deal. And you know what I would have? And back then, I don't think there was iPads, right? And there weren't landing pages. I would have, and we'll get into this in the webinar as well, I would have a landing page, and I would pass the iPad around the room and just have them quietly input their name, email, and contact information. I would build my list every Thursday night. You pick up 50 new names every Thursday night. And don't forget about this. Those mom and pops who work at Microsoft and work at Amazon, right? I'm in Seattle. They have friends. They have coworkers.
Oh, sure.
They have a dad who has 10 properties, right?
Yeah.
So now what you're doing is you've earned their trust by being an expert in this one field. You're talking a new language that makes them feel empowered. And then they're starting to call people going, oh, you ought to use this gal. You
got to talk to badass Kass.
Exactly.
She's got this great idea. Like, we were thinking of flipping and we can't get any properties at a price point that makes sense. Like, she's got a different idea. And I think this is where we should put our money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So all right, so cool. So, we'll get into some of this stuff when we do the actual webinar for this, and we'll set a date for that and put it out there. But here are the people that you had mentioned are at auctions, so people know the scene a little bit. You had mentioned there's foreclosure auction reps, there's hard money lenders, there's traditional agents like real estate agents just hanging out, and then there's buy and hold landlords, which are the investors that are they want property management, and then there's the flippers, which ultimately your goal would be to convert them into buy and hold landlords. Hey guys, let me teach you a different way, right?
Exactly.
And then and ultimately, if you can create relationships with the foreclosure and auction reps, they're going to love you because you're helping them close more deals.
You help them close more deals. We're all going to make more money together.
The hard money lenders, they're going to
they close more deals. The more houses people are buying with their money. Yeah.
So, and then the traditional agents, you're helping out their investors.
Oh, let's also add traditional loan officers, because they're refinancing everybody out of the hard money, right? Because they want long-term loans.
Yeah. So their pain is they want long-term loans.
Which is awesome because they also have investors with large portfolios of rentals, hopefully, because the type of loan officers that hang out at these auctions or these, Thursday night meetings like we do in Seattle, they understand they have to understand hard money. They have to be creative on their financing, right? Because there's lending laws around, how this all works. And then they end up with a huge portfolio of more buy and hold type of investors.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, cool. So, so basically, this will allow you to grow your business. And in any market, I mean, any market where there are auctions, city market where there's properties, do you think it'd be pretty realistic for a property manager to close 10 deals a month?
Oh, I should hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid of lease up onlys. I'd like to talk about that in the webinar as well. We're property managers, but hey, I'll take first month's rent. If you want to manage it yourself and you think you got it all figured out, I'll still find you the best tenant in town and I'll lease it up.
Lease only. I mean, that's the gateway drug to get full management clients. That's how they test the waters with you. And
then when they get to that breaking point, they're like, I got too many properties. They're like, what, I'm just going to go ahead and give you my whole portfolio. So like I said, I've done well over 3,000 just lease ups alone.
Right.
Because of these guys.
That's a great way to get your business started. Absolutely. Yeah. And so what we're not going to talk about today are all the tips and mistakes and the lessons that you learn, because like you mentioned, there's a lot of sharks in that water and it could be pretty bloody. You've made some mistakes that you learned from, and so they'll get that knowledge from you. Also, I mean, the biggest question people are like, how do I get started with this? And so we'll get into that, because I think that, they could find an auction and just like show up, but they would feel probably pretty awkward just standing there not knowing what's going on. And so we will explain a process so they can ease themselves into this, so that they can figure out the game, get familiar with the players that are there, figure out the
language. Yeah, we'll get
the language.
Yeah. So that they feel confident, because you don't need to go there to get bullied. You need to go there to be a benefit, right? And so we'll set them up to be an expert. Right. We're up to be able to walk in with confidence.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to put how to position as an expert. Cool. This will be some good stuff.
I think this could be like 3-5 series. Like this isn't even a 1 hour job, Jason.
Okay. We can break it down. So the webinar tool I use, we can create sessions. Yeah. And so we can plan these sessions. We might want to do it on one day for the consistency of keeping everybody moving through, but we would break it up. 1 hour here, break, 1 hour here, break, 1 hour here, if that makes sense. So we'll divide that up, and we'll figure that out ourselves, and we'll plan a date that's far enough in the future that we can get some people to it. And I think it'll be awesome. So stay tuned. Yay! And we will be putting together something with Badass Kass on how to have badass growth in your property management business through one idea. And this is just one idea. It's one idea, but for a lot of property managers, this is a game-changing idea.
So let me also tell you, I'm one of those people who have never marketed. This is the only way that I built my business.
Yeah. Now, do you do pay-per-click right now?
Nope.
Are you paying SEO companies?
Nope.
Have you done local SEO?
Nope.
Have you been blogging a whole lot?
Nope.
Yeah, so and a lot of people starting out, they do start doing this stuff, but then they realize this is not, it's a bad idea to start by doing those things, because that's really expensive.
I'm starting to do those things, and organically now.
You're at the stage now that it makes sense.
Yeah.
And you have the cash flow.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You have the cash flow that it makes sense to do that. Whereas people starting 0 to 100 doors,
they just need to get some deals. They need to get some deals under their belt, and they need to pay their bills.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what I did.
They don't have the luxury of spending that kind of money for marketing. Not only that, but internet marketing, the leads you get through internet marketing, the close rate on those is always going to be like 50% less, like in your close rate. Like usually the close rate on word of mouth or solid prospecting, you're going to be at the upper end, like word of mouth, 70% or higher on your close rate. It's usually a slam dunk. You just don't screw it up. Whereas you ship the internet marketing based leads, they don't know you from Adam. It's cold conversation initially. The close rate's going to be at least 30% or lower, maybe 10% or lower, depending on how effective they are at sales. And most property managers, not good at sales. Like they don't have a system, they don't have a process, and they don't realize this until they get to about 200 to 400 doors and they start to try to do leads or internet-based leads or something else. And they then blame the leads because they're like, oh, the leads are terrible. Why? Because they're comparing it to word of mouth. Word of mouth, we didn't even have to sell. We just got signatures, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that I've tried, some lead sources, and I think it was because of my auto dealership days where as a finance manager, the salesperson took the test drive, sold the car, and then just handed me a deal.
Yeah.
That's how I feel by working with the foreclosure groups, right?
Exactly.
They do the sales.
Almost the same as word of mouth.
They find the investors. They're attracting the investors. They're paying all the money for the marketing and hosting the event every Thursday night. They've got the building. They've got all that.
They're pointing at badass Kass.
And I just show up and I'm just there to help.
Yeah. Yeah, they just point at you and they're like, yeah, badass Kass knows this stuff. Ask her. And you're there as an expert. You've got a line of people coming to ask you questions, and so because you have these relationships that you've developed.
Yeah.
So.
And I have to tell you another thing. I love investors. I love foreclosure investors. They look at cents and dollars, right? It's not emotional. They didn't live in the home. This isn't a landlord who's like, oh, but this is my baby, right? Those people are way harder to manage. I like investors. They're like, so you're going to do what? When? How? All right, rock and roll. Send me a contract, right? Like, they're non-emotional.
They're like, okay, sign it.
Just
right?
Do the deal. Those are my kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is going to be really awesome. So you can check out, Kass has all kinds of really cool stuff that we'll probably be talking about in the future coming up. You can connect with her at where? How do people connect with you?
I would, I think the best way to find me is you can find me on my personal Facebook page, which is Kassandra Rose. Rent My Way is my second startup that I'm starting right now. It's actually a national program to help landlords, property managers, and renters get through the landlording ecosystem and process in a smoother way. When I hang up with you, I'm actually heading down to meet with my business advisors, and we're raising $1 million in the next 30 days. So I'm really excited about that. So because of this brick and mortar company that I started here locally, it's called rentlucky.com. At Rent Lucky, I have been able to build $1 million property management business that has funded my big idea. And my big idea is Rent My Way. And we're getting $1 million in funding for that in the next 30 days. And there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming out. So I'm really excited. And
cool. I'm excited for you.
It honestly all happened because of my foreclosure relationships. I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't showed up at those auctions and built those relationships.
Cool. Cool stuff. Really cool stuff. All right, cool. So we'll end on that note. So if you are new to the DoorGrow show or you haven't seen any of our interviews yet, go to doorgrow.com and check us out. So we are badass for helping property managers level up their business. Anything that you need from marketing, coaching, whatever. The only thing I don't teach you how to do is how to manage a property. Right. Everything else, if you want to win, we're the people to talk to. So cool. All right. Thanks, Kass. I appreciate you as always. It's
Love what you're doing.
And I'm going to end the recording.
Okay.